Hi everyone, Mahatma here, and I'm here with Lucy for part two of our talk on sexual harassment in the workplace. We had a bit of technical difficulties in the first recording, so we decided to go through it again with you. And yeah, Lucy, I think we should just try to see if we can go straight back into it. And we left off by talking about Tanzanian culture within the workplace and how that affects the interaction. So, how best to approach the issue of harassment in the workplace within the Tanzanian context? What would you suggest?
I think as a reminder first, I think, did we stop right at the culture part, or?
I think you were telling us about how females who engage in that sort of back and forth banter sort of feel cornered within that one spot, that every interaction from then on ends up going back to something of that kind. Is that fair to say?
I mean, most of the time, but there's, like I think I mentioned that there's always an opportunity to pull back,
right,
or to stop that, to stop it, basically cut it like right where you feel like it's uncomfortable. But it becomes, or rather we make it very uncomfortable for a person to get to that point where they want to cut that banter because they're feeling offended, they're feeling like somebody might cross the line. And we paint a picture that, you know, you've been responding this way for so long, why now? So
right,
you, in essence, make that person feel like they're being a villain,
right,
for wanting to draw that line.
Okay, but how do those lines become drawn? Because the article itself obviously is called The Thin Line Between Flirting and Harassment. And as I was reading through it again now, you said flirting or coquetry is allowed in the workplace, but how would you define harassment as opposed to flirting?
Let me correct you. I did not say it's allowed
Well,
in the workplace. What I think is...
takes place at least.
It happens, yes.
Right.
It's not something you can control or you can stop people from doing. It's a social, weird kind of etiquette, if I should put it that way.
Right.
But the line now comes in with individual perspectives, first of all. And another important thing to consider is the kind of environment you're working in. Because you would go to places or organizations that clearly outline that this is allowed, this is not allowed, relationships between colleagues are not allowed, you know, this is, you know. So if you're in a setup whereby all of these things are so clearly outlined, it makes it a little bit easier for people to understand that I can do this, but then when I get to a certain point, I may get into trouble.
Right.
But then if you're in a place that doesn't necessarily have those guidelines, the burden to draw that line falls within each individual.
Right.
Yes,
Would
because
you,
if my definition of discomfort when it comes to sexual advances and so forth may not be the same as the next lady's, or I may be considered too relaxed over it, and then somebody else may be too rigid over it. So that line now becomes a personal thing, and it's now up to you to say that this is where I draw the line. If you're in that environment, like I say, that doesn't yet have that outlined.
Yeah, so would you say that's one of the biggest problems we face here, at least in Tanzania, is that there's a general ambiguity about what is acceptable on a broad consensus basis? Because, you know, everyone has their own boundaries and standards, but there is no uniform standard for everyone. Do you think that's part of the contributors to...
What I think, because like this is the first big company I've worked in Tanzania.
Right.
But what I've observed generally about Tanzanians is we're friendly. And at times we get friendly to a fault, and like it crosses a certain person's lines.
Right.
So when it comes to the workplace, and on top of the whole thing of us being very friendly, there's another thing that also defines how we interact with each other, and that is our cultures and religions.
Right.
Many times you would find a situation whereby a man does something and a woman is expected to just take it or to just overlook it. Or maybe our social constraints, they
Can
define.
you give an example of, I mean, not like this happened, or like what kinds of things?
Okay, I'm going to run away from the example part, but I'm going to put it this way. If you'd find like I said, a man does something and they laugh it off. And somebody who has already said that this is maybe where I draw the line between flirting with my colleague and so forth is now considered offending or taking something too seriously.
Right.
Okay, yeah, actually I can give an example. Let's say, now this now is on a social platform.
Right.
We work together, we're very friendly, we're always laughing with each other and so forth. And you express maybe how you feel about people through giving them hugs and so forth. I personally don't like being hugged by just random people. I always feel like that's somebody getting in my personal space, and not many people understand that. Because somebody's just going to be like, well, it was just a hug.
Yeah.
But then if I feel like you've hugged me and I'm not really comfortable with it, I might mention it to my superior if I really want to accelerate things, or I might just like brush it down. So in the case that I tell this to my superior, that Mahatma hugged me and I felt uncomfortable about it, you might be confronted by my superior and asked, this is the situation, this is the complaint, this lady felt like you crossed the line, but your defense is, but I was just being friendly. I hug a lot of people in the office. So that's like the social aspect of it. Then there's the religion. Then there's the culture of how things should be done.
What's the religious aspect of it entirely? What is it? Some religions are more indulging, or what?
Some religions could be more restricting. Some could be, I don't think there's any religion that is very indulging when it comes to sexual harassment. So one might hide behind the fact that this is not allowed. But then this is a workplace.
Right.
And we're friends.
Okay.
You know? And you can't just go crying sexual harassment just because of a certain religion. You're taking things too seriously. You're being too rigid.
Right.
So I think it's defined so differently. A lot of things factor into an individual's perspective when it comes to sexual harassment. And this is one of the things that makes it very difficult even for organizations to get that under control.
Right. So essentially it's going to be, at least in Tanzania, we will try to keep it specific here, we're sort of learning how to wade through these waters, because it's a very touchy and sensitive issue. So it's on an individual basis at this point currently. So on that note, what would you suggest men do in order to modify their behavior in the workplace, consciously or subconsciously? Because I mean, I'm sure maybe somebody might listen to your advice, just, hey, look out for this, or don't be so quick to, what will be your suggestions there?
I think with men, it's very important to acknowledge the fact that you can easily become a villain.
Right.
Unlike a woman, I mean, trust me, when I was doing research for this story, I remember asking a bunch of men, and most of them like, I wouldn't mind a woman sexually harassing me.
Yeah.
But you see, with your gender, we can easily vilify you.
Yeah.
I would cry and blink my eyes and have fake tears, and instantly you become a pariah.
That's
so
happened.
So it's very important for men to realize how quick and how easy it is for them to become villains.
Right.
So when whatever interaction you have, regardless of your background, regardless of your religion or your culture, whatever it is you want to use as an excuse for behaving a certain way, when it comes to places of work, it's very important to be able to, in essence, disassociate yourself with that and put yourself in the mentality that I need to be professional. I need to learn to respect boundaries. If a woman tells me that she's not comfortable with this, don't laugh it off and say I was just joking. Take responsibility for that and apologize if need be. Do you
think your advice would be heeded?
Honestly, it's a long shot.
Yeah, sounds like a 5-year
It's very theoretical.
Yeah,
it's very theoretical at this point.
There's no
but
proving
it's
this.
something I really wish people would understand.
Right.
And even if you're not necessarily going to start doing it today or tomorrow, internalize it, start practicing it, just work on it somehow.
Okay, this is going to be quite an odd question, given the topic, but would you place any of the burden of responsibility in addressing this issue on women, or is this an entirely male problem within the workplace?
We all have parts to play when it comes. And it's not fair to say that men are the ones who sexually harass. Even women sexually harass men. It's just that, men being you.
Yeah, like what?
You don't usually
I feel like it's the physical dominance aspect of it, where
the masculinity.
Yeah, and men are physically imposing over women, so it's not like that.
Yes.
That adds another element to it.
But then again, sexual harassment is not just physical.
Yeah,
it could be comments.
But there is I forgot like exactly how they explained this, but there's somebody that told me back in South Africa, essentially when you're walking down the street as a woman, like, and you pass any random guy, it could be a nice guy, but if this guy wasn't, if he really wanted to, he could have his way with you. I feel like, you could correct me, isn't an element of that always in the back of a girl's mind? Whilst,
it is.
Yeah, even whilst that works, like, oh my God, if this guy actually tried,
It is. It really is. We always have that fear that a man could easily manhandle you.
Yeah.
Or overpower you, and men are usually work cultures, I think, in many places. There are places that have successfully overcome this, but you'd go to certain places and women still struggle to express themselves.
Yeah.
Women still fear to come forward if something happens. So there's always that lingering thought in the back of a woman's head that I need to watch how I do this, I need to watch how I respond this way. But then also you're concerned that if I turn this person down, they might overpower me, they might say something negative to me, and it's like you're walking on eggshells.
Yeah. No, I feel you there. In your article, you were mentioning, especially in the early parts, where the guy essentially asks after, making the lady feel uncomfortable, like, oh, have you never dated someone from work? Have you never dated a married man? So I just wanted to gain your perspective on this. How prevalent are workplace entanglements between young females and older married men?
It's not just a workplace thing, it's everywhere.
Yeah, I know, but like now we're dealing specifically with the workplace because there is that element of, oh, maybe my career could be advanced. Oh, maybe I could get a better, So do you think?
Yeah, there's always those misconceptions, those misguided thoughts that if I have a relationship with this person, I could be assisted, or if I sleep with my boss or flirt with my boss and say,
but it could also be implied from the other end. The guy could say like, hey, listen, you do this for me, and I could.
That's the thing. Many times you find that this is misguided. Because if you're looking at a company, no matter the promises this man makes for you, remember there is a board of directors sitting, there is the human resources, there is the legal part of it.
Yeah,
if he gets caught making promises to a woman that if you do this for me, I'm going to promote you, if you do this, trust me. If the company does not intervene, some other government body or union or trade or whatever is going to get involved, and then your company is going to suffer.
Okay.
So like I said, it's misguided and it's wrong.
Yeah. But would you say it's still an occurrence?
It still happens, yes.
All right.
It still happens very much.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much like sex. It's the oldest trade in history.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so but on the harassment front, we were talking about how best to address these issues in the Tanzanian context, African context, because a lot of the times you get people who read a manual or a guideline on dealing with sexual harassment in the workplace, but it's written in like France or the US. How do you think, are there more practical ways to, express these issues to the workforce here? How do you think the best way to approach this?
I think when I was like reading this through, I went to the International Labour Organization. What did I say?
International.
Yeah, the ILO, and they have this guideline on policies and addressing workplace sexual harassment, complaints, and so forth. And then I wanted to also find out how government bodies in our country address it. So I found NEMC. NEMC is
National Environment
yes,
Management Council.
Management Council. So NEMC, I'm so sorry if this is going to get me into trouble, but it was word for word with what the ILO had put out, which is okay. But in the long run, Tanzania is still very much a developing country.
In the short run too.
Yeah, you can't bring what works in severely developed countries out there and expect it to work in Tanzania.
Right.
We still have people who, before they do anything, they still have to consult their ancestors. They still have to do what. There's no way you're going to come and say to them that the ILO says you should behave like this before a woman, and they're gonna be like, what you talking about?
Yeah.
Who's the ILO? What impact do they have on my life? So I think as far as Tanzania is concerned, and I hope even our company could take that into consideration, it's very important to basically troubleshoot what works.
Right.
We have had, let's say, complaints in our company. How did you address these complaints? And then what are you doing about them afterwards? So instead of adapting what has been written by international organizations,
White people.
No, I did not say that. Take what they've put out there, use it maybe as a framework to understand how it works out there, but then take the time to bring it home. So in a company like ours, maybe have ballot boxes.
Yeah.
If people have complaints and whatnot, just like play scenarios.
Yeah.
You know, put it out there that maybe like whenever we have, let's say, our company meetings, put it out there that, let's say there was this complaint. As a head of department, as a colleague, as a supervisor, how would you handle such a complaint? And then like have, let's say, a ballot box. See how people react to certain scenarios, and from that you could actually come up with something that you could implement in your country, in your company, that actually works for your organization.
Right. Do you think corporations such as MCL here, are they setting a sort of unrealistic standard for Tanzania by engaging in these sorts of discussions? Because at the end of the day, it's not going to trickle down through the rest of the country.
No, I don't think it's unrealistic.
Right.
I think just like with anything, eventually somebody else is going to catch up on it.
Right.
Eventually somebody else is going to talk about it. And then one person talks about it, 3 people talk about it, 4 big companies are running this kind of campaign. And the next thing you know, the government is like, okay, our people are going this direction. We might as well assist in the way that we can. So this is something that is already happening. This is a problem. There have been so many cases and they're always brushed under the rug, hush, hush, and all that. So we are not setting unrealistic goals. We are setting a precedence.
Right. Okay, that's a nice way of looking at it. And how long do you think it takes actual shape here in Tanzania, where people are, even with us here,
there's no putting a timeline to this one. I mean, you know our country, people.
Hey man, we're working on it. We'll get that.
Oh, we are work in progress, yes.
Yeah, work in progress. Okay, so we're talking about setting boundaries at work and swift actions and what can be done. Confidentiality. Just walk us through, addressing the boundaries of work. Like what kind of policies? Because you spoke with the human resources manager here, and what kind of feedback did he give you in terms of this company in specifics? What do you think would work in addressing the physical issues?
I don't think he was in a position to tell me what works for the company, because technically the company is also still trying to put together like
this is the process of that.
So this is like my deductions that I'm telling you right now based on the research that I did. This has nothing to do with like who said what to me. This is my understanding.
I get that.
Yes, but in addressing it, I think what our HR was able to explain was, like I said, first the policies, which now I think need to be adapted to our situation. And then in the case that you have a complaint, how you handle it and how quickly you handle it is also very important, because if you slack on handling a sexual complaint, regardless of who it came from or how sensitive it may be, somebody else might be more inclined to step in, and you don't know the level of damage that might ensue when another party steps in.
By another party, I mean like legal representative.
Legal, police, court, whoever it is, because again, depending on the weight of the situation, a victim might feel like, okay, my company is letting me down, so I'm taking this to the police.
Right.
And once it goes to the police, once it goes to court, it's out of your hands.
Yeah, on that note though, how are we looking as a country in addressing these sorts of issues? I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but misogyny has not been...
Honestly, I don't think I'm the best person to answer that.
Yeah, maybe next time we'll try to get some proper... Because this is, I don't know, it's fascinating stuff to see how, how we're trying to deal with things that are being reckoned with all around the world.
Yeah.
And, we're like a bit 7 years too late on Me Too.
Yeah.
But it's always nice to have these sorts of engagements. And what would you want, lastly, what would you want people to take away from reading your article? The thin line between flirting and sexual harassment. Is there, because you could have just written an article on sexual harassment in the workplace, but you kept that little silver lining there. So what would you want people to, readers, to come
I think everybody has a part to play in this, from an individual basis to an organizational level.
Right.
So on an individual basis, I would say it's important to respect when somebody puts boundaries. When somebody says that what you did has made me uncomfortable, respect that, step away. On an organizational level, I would say, in addition to the swift action and all of that, it's also, we already see that most of these cases are handled with confidentiality, because you try to protect both parties. It's not always about the victim, it's also about the alleged offender. You don't want to create a situation where this person is defamed and then you damage or basically assassinate their character. Yes. And the same for the victim. I've seen in some societies something happens and the person comes forward, and even on social media, a victim would come forward over something, and there's always those people who would still try to vilify the person. So there's that, as a company, knowing how to balance the action and the confidentiality, and then also raising constant awareness. For the change to be effective, you can't just talk about it once.
Right.
You have to action.
And that's
train people
on a visceral level. People have to
you start from the lowest levels in your organizations. Train people regularly. Make sure that they understand. Have people sign contracts, but you can't just have people sign contracts without them understanding what they're signing.
Right.
If you need to sit down with your people and go through the content of the contract word by word and make sure that everybody is on board with you, do that. Have it out there, like on your notice board. Put your policy there. Let your visitors come through and read, and they're like, oh, these people, they know what they're doing. There's respect here. Because
according to the board.
According to the board. Because once people understand, it's going to be much easier for for them to create an environment where you can still be friends, you can still laugh and joke around, but you can still do it with respect and respecting each other's boundaries.
Alright.
So like I said, everybody has a role to play.
I think you summed it up nicely there. It comes down to respect, especially within the workplace where you can genuinely make somebody's life a living hell.
You get to a situation where the moment you wake up in the morning, you're like, God, I have to get to work.
Exactly. And
you don't want that situation, because then your company becomes unproductive.
I think that's very well said. Anyways, thank you very much. I think we're just about the 20-minute mark now.
We did.
We did pretty well. Thank you, Lucy. And once more, Mahatma here, people of interest. Peace.